Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast, transforming the way people think and work so their organizations can thrive. Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Ed Kless, and with me today is my Sage colleague, Deb Raskob. Deb has spent most of her career working in accounting for manufacturing companies, working her way up to controller. In 2015, a friend suggested that she would be a good fit as a Sage X3 financial consultant. As there were not a lot of options for growth with her previous employer, she decided to change career paths. And for the last 5 years, she has been working with new and existing Sage X3 customers and now partners to implement and upgrade Sage X3. Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast, Deb Raskob.
Thanks, Ed. It's great to be here.
Well, first, Deb, tell me, why do you do what you do?
Why do I do what I do? Well, having worked with the software for a lot of years, I, thought it was such a great software that I wanted to help other people use it. And as recently, they've changed our roles here at Sage. So we're focusing more on partner enablement and working with new partners to implement Sage X3 software instead of working directly with customers. So I'm really, excited about working with new partners and helping them make implementing new software a positive experience for both them and the customer.
That's great. Well, we'll talk about that in a second, but I'm going to go back a second and ask you this. Why did you even get into accounting in the first place?
That's a really good question. So when I started my career in college, I wanted to be a philosophy major. And my father said, well, I'm not paying for you to go to college to not be able to get a job when you're done. So I was a business major, taking a lot of philosophy and English classes. Fast forward a bunch of years, I went back to college as an adult, and I was working, doing some bookkeeping for a couple of small businesses. And I thought, this is really the direction where I want to go. I don't want to be a CPA. I don't want to do audits, but I want to work with businesses and do accounting work, make sure the debits and credits are right. And how do we put a good financial statement together? And so that's how I got into the world of accounting.
And talk to me a little bit about how your background in philosophy has maybe helped your career, or especially in your role as a consultant. Have you been able to apply any of the stuff that, from a philosophical standpoint, to what you do?
I was heavy into the existentialist world.
Mm-hmm.
So, everything in my life was depressing as a young adult. So, I've actually, as I've gotten older, moved away from that and don't feel that kind of that negativity flowing through me. And actually moving into the world of consulting, I've worked with so many great people that have such positive attitudes all the time. You spoke to one of my coworkers, Scott Whitney, a few weeks ago, and man, if there's anybody out there that's positive, it's Scott. And so as I've kind of developed my consulting persona, I guess, which is so different from what I have done in most of my career, I've really fed off of the kind of the positive nature that I have found almost every one of my coworkers have, as far as, working with customers, working with the software, finding solutions. It's just really, my attitude has changed a lot over the years since in the 5 years that I've been with Sage. So.
And let's talk about your new role now a little bit. You're mentioning that you're working with partners, and you're especially looking forward to working with new partners. Why is that?
Well, Sage, in the Sage world, we've got a lot of existing partners that have been implementing Sage X3 for a long time. But we also have brought on board some new partners that they're either new to the X3 world, or some of them are even new to, consulting and implementation. And so being able to help people when they first are starting to, find the right way to do things and the ways to make implementing software as painless as possible, from the customer standpoint. We had a lot of great people at Sage that helped me when I started. But I really want, the teaching aspect of it and helping people to, find the right way to communicate with their customers. It's not always a perfect fit the first time with personalities when you're working with implementing new software, because it's a very stressful time for the customer. So getting, newer consultants that are, new to the world or new to X3, comfortable in their role and being comfortable working with customers, I think is really important. And I think that's why I've been successful at this, is because I've been able to develop a rapport with my customers, and I want to help consultants be able to do that same thing.
You make a really great point that I think should be explored, and that is, when you're working with a customer, there's always an element of vulnerability in that customer, because regardless of who they are, how long they've been at that organization, the fact that they have to go outside the organization to find expertise outside the organization puts somebody in that customer in that customer organization in a vulnerable position one way or the other. And I think it's very important that gets acknowledged. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Right. And it's so reassuring the customer, I guess, that, they may not understand this new software, but they understand their job. So what I would say to them as the consultant is, I understand the software, but I don't know your job. I have a pretty good idea of what your job is because, especially on the accounting side, debits and credits, they always have to match. But I don't necessarily know exactly how your company operates. So kind of making that tie between, I'm in that same kind of vulnerable position because I don't know your company processes and how your company operates, but I know the software. You know the reverse. So when we work together, we make this a positive experience and a successful implementation. So I think that kind of empathy and having been there. So, I implemented Sage X3 software in 2006 at my previous company. And I upgraded at one point in time, I guess like around 2012. So I was in their shoes. So I think that level of empathy that I've been there, I had to do this myself, makes that connection between me and my customer a little bit easier and, makes it a smoother process. And I think that's one of the things that helps me to be successful in my job.
And Deb, we have an exit question that we ask all of our guests, and that is, who is a hero of yours and why are they a hero?
So, I've been thinking about this endlessly, and I don't really have a specific person, but who people that are heroes of mine are people that just get it done. Life throws crap at us all the time. And some of us, and me being one of these people, the woe is me kind of wants to take over and I don't want to move forward. But, the people that just go out there and say, you know what, this isn't a good thing, but I'm just going to keep moving forward and I'm going to get past this and I'm going to find my way to the other side because I know it's not the end of the world. And, I've seen my sister do this. She had a cancer diagnosis and you know what, she just put all her ducks in a row and said, this is what I want to do. I don't want to be on the other side of the country. I want to be on the East Coast where my family is. I'm going to get my insurance changed. I'm going to get everything done that I need to do. My husband and I are coming east. So she didn't feel sorry for herself. She just moved forward. And I've seen a lot of people in my life that are that way. And I try really hard to kind of learn from that and try to become like that. But, those are the type of people that inspire me.
And lastly, Deb, how can somebody contact you?
So my email at Sage is deborah.raskob@sage.com. So it's Deborah, DEBORAH.RASKOB@sage.com.
Outstanding. Deb Raskob, thanks so much for being a guest on the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.
Thanks, Ed. I really appreciate it.
Review and subscribe by searching your podcast player of choice for Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.